I put that you moved this, that.
Sure, if you'd like, I can open the meeting too.
Put anybody.
Yeah, I like it, you on there, first of all, but Eugene,
Mhm.
just so you know. What you're on.
Sure.
Before you just start your job.
Okay, well, I'm gonna press record, okay?
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna call the meeting to order. Moved by Eric Boise, seconded by Gina. That the planning advisory meeting be opened at 6 p.m. All in favor? Carried. Next, we have moved by Camille, seconded by Eric. That the minutes of the planning advisory committee meeting held November 20th, 2023. Be adopted as circulated. All in favor? Carried. Any disclosure of pecuniary interest? Hearing none, we'll move forward. No consent applications. And then we come to the other business, and it's the review of the draft official plan continued from our last meeting. And
Can we? I'd like to I have a few comments, or just quick comments about returning back to the short-term rentals.
okay,
So I had trouble getting my 2 cents in there.
okay. So,
It's
Camilla is going to
3.15.2.
review it for us, okay? Okay.
What was the fire?
3.15.2, page 28,
Oh, we're not too.
What page?
28, just to be.
Can I,
was really lagging.
if I can share my screen, I'll bring it back up.
I looked into my workshops that I went to, the planning authority workshop on September 11th, 2019, it's pretty far back. And Dennis Wally, a planner for the town of the Blue Mountains, made a presentation. And it was about renting of cabins in off season. It turned commercial and there was lack of care. They had complaints, land use conflicts, parking issues, noise, garbage, vandalism, property standards issues. And the reputation of the ski resort was at stake. Had to implement a program to resolve the issues. And she stated, do not pass a bylaw that cannot be enforced. And today it is very regulated. Licensing requirement for short-term accommodation posted in windows. $650 for noise charged to renters and demerit points to owners towards losing license. So that was the whole of our presentation. It was pretty interesting. That was back in 2019.
Okay.
And just this Sunday, yesterday, Focus Ontario, we were talking about illegal short-term rentals versus long-term rentals. I guess it's the federal government that are looking at increasing tax measures for short-term rentals. And short-term rentals like Airbnb, I don't know, the other one is what, Vrbo or something? It's a problem for all levels of government. Landlords are earning more from short-term than long-term rentals. The result, in some places, the evictions of long-term renters. And you have a solution, 6 months maximum for short-term rentals. Get more long-term rentals and they're closing in on illegal operations. Just a bit.
Okay, that's your comments with respect to that, right?
And I had a comment about settlement areas. You want to expand the settlement areas in the hamlets?
Oh, I just talked about it.
Yeah, well, my view on that, you should make things better before we make things bigger. We need new sidewalks, like sidewalk that goes to the school. You have to look for it, no? I used to use it when I was a kid. It hasn't been any upgrades then back from when I was there. That's grade 7 and 8, do the math.
Yeah, that's true, but you have to make
Yeah.
provisions for if you're going to
Instead of
get bigger.
making it bigger, try to make it better before you go big. That's my take on that. Yeah. And about the potential economic benefits of short-term rentals. I don't see how they contribute to the local economy. Short-term rentals, they bring in their own food and fuel from elsewhere. Long-term rentals do more business, are more involved in the community and support the local businesses more than the short-term Airbnb or Vrbo, whatever. So that's the way I see it, like it's. For the township, I see it's better to have long-term renters or residents than short-term. Like, I don't know where he comes up, like anybody, when somebody says it's brings economic opportunity, compare that to the long-term renters or residents. I don't think it's as profitable as if you're here, you will support local businesses. You're not bringing anything from outside or less anyways.
Well, thank you. Those are interesting comments for sure.
There, I said my 2 cents.
Okay, no, that's fine. That's what we're here for.
So, before we start that, I wanna, address those points. So it's my understanding that during this, this policy that we're making amendments to, there's not gonna be a decision on rental yet. That's something for the future, right? You're just leaving it open for now for discussion.
Yeah, I don't think there was anything finalized on that, just comment.
Just
And
leave it.
that's mainly what we're doing here, I think, is just commenting on everything, because
Yeah.
then once we put it back together, when we finish this
Review.
going through everything, then are we, and once we have it put together, are we going to be looking at it again before the consultants bring it to the public?
Yes,
Okay,
Are we going to be involved with the zoning bylaw or? Not up to us. The zoning bylaw, that's where you go into details.
yeah,
I don't know where that other noise is coming from. So our goal as the committee here is just to look at the official plan, we'll do the review, see if there's anything that kind of jumps out from the consents or any other planning activity that you've done. You've been on the committee. And then we'll bring these comments and questions back to the consultants. They will come back with answers to our questions. And then we will have a draft document to bring to council. And then once council has seen it, then we can go to the public.
okay,
So we're not expecting the public meeting to be until late spring of 2024. Because we have to give the ministry a 90-day period for commenting as well. So we expect that will be in the late spring.
very good, thank you.
So I just wanted to address some of the points, so one thing I wanted to point out is that the Blue Mountain, gentleman was,
Later.
oh, was it, sorry, maybe, well, the person was describing their own town, right? And what
He was a
happens is-
planner, Denise Wall, a planner for Blue Mountain Zone.
Yeah, so that's in Blue Mountains, and if you know the Blue Mountain area, then it's not really, it's all seasonal. So basically, it's not people renting out their homes, it's people renting out their cottages.
Off season.
Yeah, and so that's a different, and it's commercial. It's already commercial because it's basically, that's what Blue Mountain is, it's all commercial, it's all seasonal regardless, right? So it's a hard comparison to make, but with regards to short-term rentals in Bonfield, I feel like, we do have a snow machine trail that goes obviously through the area, and if you bring in short-term rentals along that trail, then businesses can take advantage of that as well, obviously like restaurants and things like that, right? But we don't have too many of those, but I don't know how putting on taxation and regulation on short-term rentals is gonna help the township.
That's the federal government that's looking at that.
Mhm.
Because it's.
No, understood, but it was mentioned here too, that the township reserves the right for future regulation and taxation. I know that Jason had mentioned in the last meeting that, you know, that they use our roads, so they should be paying, right? But I mean, if you start doing that, then you're actually pushing people away.
But you're taking away permanent residences. Or long-term rentals. If you're going into short-term rentals. You're taking away that opportunity too, so. And we're looking at the housing crisis, so.
And the goal of it, the statements that are in the official plan when it comes to short-term rentals, it has to. In all of the planning documents, you have to have your official plan it gives you permissions to do things that get implemented through zoning. And then through zoning, it can have a little bit more regulation, and then there would be a separate bylaw that just regulates just short-term rentals or, you know, or it's like. Property standards. In the official plan, it says what the main goal, like a high level goal, and then zoning says that, you know, has more detail about what the property standards. Should look like dark colored vehicles and all that other stuff. Then there's the property standards bylaw goes into the extreme detail of what it needs to be. So it would be the same thing for any other bylaw that gets implemented from the official plan. But if there's not permissions in the official plan, then you can't put it in your zoning bylaw. But I think the intent, should they, I think that many municipalities now are allowing short-term rentals, but through a licensing program.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna mention that as well, because when we talk about the township reserves the right to look into this, I think in looking at a lot of the municipalities, that's the main concern and is the licensing part. They figure it would give them more control, I believe, over the short-term rentals. But it's certainly, I think we still have lots of questions on that.
So at this point, the wording in the official plan is just to set out what, you know, the general high level goals.
Okay, so I guess last meeting we left off at 316 group homes. So we could start at 317 community gardens and urban agriculture. And I think that do you want me to go verbatim word for word or just a cursory scan?
Just like Jason
The
did.
intent, okay, so I'll start off with just reading it so I understand what it is as well, but basically the municipality recognizes the reality of rising food costs and growing culture for locally grown produce. The municipality shall encourage community gardens, rooftop gardens, and other forms of urban agriculture as important resources to the community as an attractive alternative source of food for residents. Point 1, the municipality shall support community gardens by permitting community gardens and rooftop designations, hamlet, settlement, rural, open space, except where rooftop gardens may compromise the character of a cultural heritage resource. B, promoting community gardens in all redevelopment initiatives, identifying sites including municipal parks for the establishment of community gardens, providing infrastructure support such as water, compost, and topsoil, and identifying opportunities for multiple partnerships. Number 2, the municipality shall support urban agriculture by permitting the keeping of small animals for personal consumption on lots in the residential and commercial focus areas of the hamlet, settlement area designations, and rural area designations, subject to all applicable bylaws. The township may establish noise, animal control, or other bylaws to ensure land use conflicts of such uses are mitigated. So basically, the only thing that we're changing is adding the fact that the municipality will support keeping small animals in the residential and commercial focus areas.
10 roosters.
Yeah, cause I don't, like, is that a goat? Is that what is a small animal? Is it a cow? Is it a goat? Is it a?
Yeah, so it would get regulated through zoning again.
Right.
Yeah, so there would be a bylaw that would just be like a livestock bylaw under zoning. Again, this is just stating the permissions. But it does mean, you know, there would be chickens and there could be a goat. So, but it would get regulated by council through zoning.
in the residential area.
Right.
Like there's some places that are pretty close. Side by side there. If there's room, there should be a minimum lot size. Chisholm, I do believe they have a minimum lot size for animals, so you look at that.
And there are a lot of municipal zoning bylaws that do allow chickens or poultry or small animals in their urban areas. But there's rules on how many, no roosters, 'cause roosters. Typically roosters are not allowed in town. And
Love chicken.
yeah, and coop, so I've seen anywhere from 5 to 10 that they allow, because it's for personal consumption, it's not meant to be.
Commercial.
Yeah, it's not meant to be commercial, so it's limited, and that's how you limit it by putting the numbers in, that's how you do it. In this section, I had concern for 3.17D for providing, I just didn't like the word providing. Cause that means no matter where it is or who it is, it's saying we're providing the soil, the water, and everything for it, and that just may not be something we're capable of doing.
Change providing infrastructure, encouraging infrastructure.
Or ensuring infrastructure.
I read it a little bit differently because I feel like the word support, so providing infrastructure support. Such as water, compost, or topsoil, so I feel like if someone, if I were to come up with a plan and say I'd like to build a greenhouse. And obviously it's my property and I'm gonna build a greenhouse to, promote flower or whatever. I would like the city to at least provide, or at least meet me halfway and provide a connection to the water source, if there is one available, right? In town, for example.
Yeah.
I feel that's what,
We don't have water in town now,
Right.
so it would.
I don't live in town, so I didn't know that. Okay,
Yeah,
so-
so there's no municipal services here.
right.
So
right.
it would just be, that would mean, if you read it like the municipality shall provide support community gardens by providing infrastructure support. Then that means we're,
We're
Sure.
paying, we're providing,
Sure. Okay.
Providing
Yeah, we don't wanna do
information or.
or just ensuring infrastructure support is there, because maybe it is feasible in some situations for us to do it. We do have our own community garden already.
Yeah.
That Public Works pretty much looks after, and a number of volunteers come out to weed. So we do have one in town already, so maybe it's just we're gonna ensure and we'll help people get and source these things, but maybe we're not providing.
So what's the word that we're using, sharing?
I was gonna say ensuring.
Ensuring?
I don't know if that's the most appropriate word, but. Would be the things,
Or assisting.
yeah.
Ensuring infrastructure support such as
Yeah, or, yeah, I can.
assisting with.
how about providing educational material?
And we can get the planners to give us the word.
Yeah, yeah.
They've probably done this.
Go ahead.
Can we just check with Gina can hear us?
Oh. Hello, Gina?
Yes, I can. I'm just
Okay.
wondering, are you gonna scroll the document on the,
If I remember, yep, thank you.
okay, thanks. I have it on my tablet open too, though, then I'm just. Okay,
So 3.18 accessory uses, wherever a use is permitted in a land use classification, it is intended that uses, buildings, or structures normally incidental, accessory, and essential to that use shall also be permitted. Word is almost hiding there. Basically, that's
Like a shed, is that what you're talking about?
yeah, I feel like it's,
Shed or a little chicken coop, if they're allowed to.
well,
have
that's,
chickens
yeah, I
there.
feel like it's an accessory building to what the use is for, right? So that if you,
They'll need a permit.
well, not necessarily,
Yeah,
if it's smaller than.
10 by 10,
Yeah. Okay,
what number are you on?
3.19, we're starting that. Drive-through facility. The previous one was about accessory uses.
3.1 acre with 3.1.
Did you go through 3.152 two?
That was last week.
Yeah, okay, okay, I'm scrolling the wrong way. Thank you.
No problem.
Okay,
Okay, so 3.19 drive-through facility. A drive-through facility is an establishment that provides or dispenses products or services through an attendant or an automated machine to persons remaining in vehicles that are in designated stacking aisles. A drive-through facility may be in combination with other uses such as bank, restaurant, or gas station. A drive-through facility may be permitted in the Hamlet settlement area designation, subject to the policies set out under the land use compatibility section of this plan. Number two, a transportation impact study shall be required for proposed drive-through facilities that demonstrate whether the traffic generated by the proposed use would impact on adjacent uses and traffic flow. Number three, drive-through facilities shall not be located between a main building and the public street. And four, drive-through facilities shall be subject to site plan control. Site plans shall conform to the provisions of this section of the official plan, and any applicable provisions in the zoning bylaw. Drive-through facilities shall be designed to ensure that pedestrian and vehicle movements are provided in a safe manner. Any questions, comments? No?
About there, yes.
Okay.
The only note that I have. I don't mean to be the only one who speaks again, but the
No.
only note I have on number 3 is we would need, because this can't be located between a main building and a public street, so we would. Control that through site plan control, so we still need the site plan control bylaw to be implementing that, so.
Yep,
Mhm.
okay. 3.20, wayside pits and quarries, portable concrete and asphalt plants. Although not designated on any schedule to this plan, wayside pits and quarries and portable concrete and asphalt plants used for public authority contracts shall be permitted without the need for an official plan amendment or rezoning or development permit under the Planning Act in all areas except A, in those areas of existing development designated as Hamlet Settlement Area hazard land, and B, provincially significant wetlands. Permits for wayside pits and quarries and portable concrete and asphalt plants are granted subject to the provisions of the Aggregate Resources Act. The public consultation processes and site rehabilitation of wayside pits and quarries must be carried out in conformity with the Act. Basic, that's generic. 321, railway corridors. Development along the railway corridor should generally be limited to industrial and commercial uses and shall be compatible with and not negatively affect the intended long-term use of the corridor. Where planning approvals are required to allow for development or redevelopment near a railway corridor, consideration shall be given to the impacts of noise and vibration. Feasibility or detailed noise studies may be required prior to development. A proponent should pre-consult with the municipality and the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks publication. There you go, there's the guidelines. Number 2. It's scratched out, so that to determine which type of study is required, this type of study is based on the sound levels resulting from surface transportation noise and its impact on a site and the site's location to the railway corridor. Applications for planning approvals to allow for residential or other sensitive land uses shall be accompanied by a feasibility or detailed noise study to the satisfaction of council in consultation with Ottawa Valley Railway, demonstrating that applicable provincial policies and guidelines with respect to noise and land use compatibility have been addressed. Such applications shall be permitted only where council is satisfied that appropriate noise mitigation measures will be implemented at the time of development. Lastly, where development is proposed within 50 meters of the OVR, submission of a vibration study, preparation to the satisfaction of council in consultation with OVR, and addressing the potential impacts of vibration and recommended mitigation measures may be required. Where potential adverse impacts are identified, appropriate mitigation measures shall be implemented at the time of development. Basically, we're lessening the distance for vibration study and And other than that, it's basically maintaining still the same policies.
I think that they shouldn't say the OVR. They should say the owner of the railway.
I think that's probably determined.
It used to be CP, then it was the OVR, now it's owned by
Could change quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Genesee.
Wyoming.
Yeah.
Yes, and
Sure, yeah. Yeah,
that's to keep it, because then if something comes up, right, you're only to be speaking to the OVR
Right.
and not the railway company that owns them.
Mhm.
To the railway company.
well, it's interesting because it might be that the OVR is the is the administrative owner of that line, right?
Today, yeah.
They maintain the line even though that there's other railways that use it. It's their territory to maintain it, so there would be the authority to contact, but you're right, if they sell again. And they go on a different name,
Mhm.
maybe you just add OVR. And then in brackets or
Yeah, we can even just put
Current
owner operator.
owner.
yeah, the authority,
Railway authority, railway owner.
yeah, the proper railway authority. And that way
Yeah.
you just leave it generically that,
Angel VR, the railway.
They don't have a lot of space, I think, do they?
Well, on a number of them. I think it's just the way that. The only comment I had on that is we are changing it from 100 meters to 50 meters, which I really don't have a problem with.
But it continues on number 4 with Burns and whatever.
Yeah,
Could be out with that, but I don't think so.
and I'm assuming that we're able now to switch to reduce that setback, the 50 meters, because it's a secondary track, not a main track. So that we don't think it will be a main track again, so I think that it's safe to do that reduction.
yeah, there's 2 points I missed, I didn't see that on the next page, so. Appropriate safety measures such as setbacks, burns, and security fencing shall be provided in association with all development proposal adjacent to railway corridors to the satisfaction of the municipality in consultation with CP Rail. So basically, it's required that they put up fencing and it would be on the municipality to review that.
Say they already covered it.
Yeah, I wrote the way authority.
In lieu of the site-specific studies addressed above and required in the pre-application consultation and prescribed information for planning applications section of this plan, the municipality, in consultation with the OVR or whatever we're gonna determine, may undertake a comprehensive study prepared in accordance with applicable provincial policies and guidelines with respect to noise and land use compatibility to determine appropriate noise mitigation measures to be incorporated into the new development proposed in close proximity to rail corridors. Any such study shall be updated on a regular basis to reflect current rail operating conditions. Okay. 3.22 community amenity. It is the policy of council to ensure that all necessary steps are taken to preserve the community amenities of the township as new development takes place. In particular, council will seek to ensure that all new development is designed in accordance with accepted planning and engineering standards to provide a pleasant living atmosphere for the township's residents. This may include, but is not limited to, requirements of new development to employ a complete streets design to ensure comfortable access for people of all ages and abilities using multiple forms of transportation. 3.2.3 tree planting and landscaping. Special attention shall be paid to fostering a widespread growth of trees and the provisions of landscaping in the hamlet settlement areas. Trees along streets will be protected, and where trees have to be removed, they will be replaced as soon as possible. In new developments, trees and landscaping will be required to be provided by the developers. In general, a program of tree planting and preservation and landscaping will be encouraged so that all areas are provided with trees and other vegetation to provide high standard of amenity and appearance. 3.24. Actually, any comments there? No? I find it interesting that so we're requiring developers to replace any trees that they removed for like, if, for example, let's say in Hamlet, Rutherglen, Gagne's wanna, get their parking lot bigger, but they take a tree down, they have to put a new one up somewhere else, right?
This is essentially what it's saying.
Yeah.
Or if you have 5 acres and you cut down 2 acres to build your house. You still have to replace trees.
Not,
There's provisions later on, but
but this is Hamlet only, right?
Yeah.
Cause I don't feel like if you were to clear a lot in the woods, in rural, that you wouldn't. You wouldn't,
That's a woodlot.
yeah,
But it's also saying trees along streets,
Yeah.
yeah, so this is the
Yeah.
settlement areas and the hamlets,
right? So just along the street, it wouldn't be if we cleared the lot,
yeah.
plant the house there.
To beautify the community, I guess.
Yeah.
yeah, there's provisions later on under that for trees.
Okay.
Mhm.
324, streetscaping and beautification and property maintenance. The township shall adopt policies to maintain a high standard of public buildings, public works, and all other public facilities. All roads, sidewalks, curbs, ditches, and all other public works shall be maintained in good repair so that the maintenance of private property will thereby be encouraged and pollution kept to a minimum. The position and design of all public signs and street furniture shall be coordinated so that they form a harmonious part of a continuously improving streetscape. All new street furniture shall be chosen and placed so as to visually enhance the general appearance of the area. The township shall encourage private property maintenance to a high standard and may set provisions for such standards in the zoning bylaw or by bylaws such as stated in section 7 of this plan. Parking and loading. It is generally intended that adequate parking shall be required for all uses of land in this plan and that adequate loading space shall be provided for all non-residential uses. For new development, there is no serious difficulty in achieving this, but in the development areas of deficiency of parking and loading space may be a problem. Redevelopment and neighborhood improvement may provide opportunities for alleviating deficiencies in these cases. Adequate parking and loading space shall be required in clearly defined areas for all new development, redevelopment, and conversion of buildings from one use to another. This will include not only space for owners, residents, or employees, but also for visitors and customers. No parking will be permitted in residential yards unless accommodation for vehicles or specially designed areas be provided. All parking areas and structures shall be attractively designed and shall be landscaped in a sufficient amount to enhance their appearance. Regulation governing parking and loading facilities are detailed in zoning bylaw. Any comments?
I had a few in this one.
Hi,
Since you know what you
I was just wondering, what do we deem as a high standard for number 3.24?
That's a good question.
For
Mhm.
That's a really good question. I don't think there's a defined level, but I feel like if someone, I'm just saying, this is not my opinion or anything, but like, for example, if someone puts their sailboat in their driveway and it sits there all season, then it's not really, you're parking your big boat and it's maybe obstructing the view of your neighbors and it's on the main street, then it's maybe not the proper kind of storage, right? Like, or if you have a fire pit in your front yard and you're on Main Street, that's also maybe not the highest standard. I think it would be one of those things.
I was thinking,
If your neighbors say something, then you might have a problem.
I thought private property.
Sorry, go ahead. Okay.
I was like property maintenance. I was thinking of the maintenance of the property and the home itself, for that line, for not storage, but the property maintenance. So I'm thinking of the home and the yard, and I'm just wondering what would be deemed high standard, because not everybody, depending on their income, might not put as high value windows or siding or whatever. So I was just wondering what you meant by a high standard.
I think like Nikki said that it would go back to the property standards bylaw once it's established. So those standards would be listed in the bylaw.
It's definitely explained in the bylaw in greater detail than in here. And then it does say,
Okay,
or stated in section 7, which we haven't got to yet,
Okay.
so.
And I just,
But I don't, section 7 is still very grand statements.
yeah. Okay,
and I think like. I don't know if it's farther down. Because I read it from back of time once. But like, I think that we should regulate the. The sidewalks and streetscaping in subdivision development.
Okay.
I know currently we don't really do that.
What section is that one then?
Well, I just kind of put it underneath the streetscaping,
Okay.
but I'm not sure that it would be. If it's in the subdivision portion.
Mhm.
Well, I know right now, like we regulate the street, how it's built, we pass all the engineering. But I don't think currently we designate how the streetscaping should look. So I think that in the subdivision plan, there should also include the sidewalks to be constructed. Benches, flowers, trees, I think that should also go within our subdivisions.
The restrictions.
Well, to make, sort of put the onus on the developer, right, to make it a beautiful area, the subdivision, so that when the township does take over the maintenance of the. Roads and those sidewalks, they're already established and we just have to take over the maintenance of that. So the developer. Doesn't walk away with all the money, right?
Well, it advantages the developer too.
Yeah.
It's easier to sell this property
Yeah,
at a
exactly.
higher price
Yeah.
if it looks nice.
So if we start implementing those things and as we grow, we end up with a beautiful community. Out of that as well,
Curb appeal.
right?
That's what it is.
But I don't know, you know what I mean?
I
It
do.
goes somewhere
I know
else.
there's somewhere else
Yes.
in there where it does speak to it, I just don't know where.
Yeah.
My comments, I guess, it's just. Most of them on the parking. Would be surprised. So it says no parking is permitted in the residential yards unless accommodation for vehicles, so. How do we see this happening when the new, so our lots are in town, they're still fairly small lots. The bill 23 has said that every house can now have 4 units. As of right, it can have 4 units. So we know that that's going to be in our zoning bylaw. So if a house turns into 4 apartments, the yard is not made for 8 cars or even 4 cars. So I guess the fear would be, would your residential yard, or how far do you think we need to regulate the residential yard to say that you can't take away all of the green space, because if there's kids living in those units, they also need someplace to play. So,
Weeping did too. Have to protect that. Can't put a
Yes.
parking lot on top of that.
right, so I get there's no parking in there, but I just put your mind to how would we handle that when you get 4 units in there? Not gonna happen often, but it could happen.
You need to be adequate space for parking too. That, I think that's in the regulations somewhere.
There's one particular home I can think about that has no parking. No driveway. Oh, actually 2 houses that have no driveways.
The way I see it is, we do this all the time, when we're planning for a new house or something like that, and you basically start from, does that, if you wanna add, let's say, 3 or 4 units, then you say, okay, well, we need 4 spots then, 1 per unit. And then you say, well, you don't have enough land, so you can't do 4, you could do 3. So basically, that's where your snag is, you basically identify that you won't be able to do 4 units, even though that it says, yes, this zone allows for 4 units, but you don't meet the land lot size requirements to add 4 parking spots, so. In order to do that, you'd have to either do
An approved site.
yeah, site plan control or something, or prove to us that you can basically park 1 car somewhere else, right? But I think that's where it would snag, is that in the preliminary stages, if they don't meet the minimum parking, then you can't even go ahead and do the 4th unit.
That would make sense, that if you if you don't have, you can't accommodate it, then we couldn't approve the rezoning, say, to have a development of 4 units or as opposed to 1 or 2, whatever. But I think it has to meet all of the conditions if we're going to approve a rezoning to allow for that.
Does Bill 23 say we have to let them have 4 units?
And I don't know how familiar you're with it. But with Bill 23, but I think that I've even read a report somewhere, and I don't know where this is because I've read lots. That we can't even say no because of the parking.
Oh, really? I didn't know about that.
So that I don't know for sure either, like that's something that we'll have to check in with the planner. I just wanted the discussion to get the feedback and to see what the parameters are for, if we have a property in town right now that wants to turn their large house into 4 units. Let's say Anne doesn't want to. Let's say she's on a small lot. Let's take her property. And her house is large enough to make 4 apartments. But if she's on a regular lot, she's going to be removing the backyard or potentially all of the front yard. I mean, for new builds, it's far simpler, but for existing builds, it would be. How comfortable are we with that? Because this is saying no. What are we doing? Like it's saying that there shall be no parking on residential yards. But I could turn my entire front yard into a parking lot, into a gravel.
If you don't exceed the ratio, there's a percentage of how much,
Lot coverage.
yeah.
Yeah.
So. Yes, you know, right?
Yeah. I'm just looking for the discussions.
Yeah. Okay, number 4. Land use designations on page 36. Hamlet settlement area. The 2 hamlet settlement areas of Bonfield and Rutherglen are shown on schedules A and B, and in greater detail on schedules A1, A2, B1, B2. Both hamlets are to be developed as the residential and commercial focal points for the township. Development within each hamlet is expected to proceed on private water and sewerage services. However, the township will consider proposals for communal servicing arrangements. The hamlets in the listed schedules are identified in listed schedules. New development shall be located in proximity to existing uses to provide for a logical progression of growth, efficient resource use, and a compact form which is supportive of active forms of transportation. New development and redevelopment, which is energy efficient, shall be encouraged, such as through planting and protection of native or non-invasive trees and vegetation, use of green infrastructure, and inclusion of permeable surfaces. This plan does not anticipate a need for piped municipal water and sewer services. Accordingly, development will be assessed on its ability to function on individual private services. However, the township will consider proposals for communal services where technically and economically feasible, the use of communal services shall be supported by a supporting options report. The following uses are permitted in the hamlet settlement areas. Residential uses subject to the following provisions. Development adheres to the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks and the North Bay Mattawa Conservation Authority policies regarding private water supply and private sewage disposal, including any requirements to obtain permits or environmental compliance approvals. Number 2, dwelling units accessory to an industrial or commercial use for security guards or the owner operator either within or separated from the industrial and commercial use may be permitted subject to the provisions of zoning bylaw. Lots front on a private provincial highway or township road maintained on a year-round basis, and new lots created by consent conform to the land division policies of this plan. It's confusing. Local serving commercial uses subject to the following provisions. Lots front on provincial highway or township road maintained on a year-round basis. Potential land use conflicts, example noise, traffic generation, are minimized using criteria in the land use compatibility section of this plan. Conservation and public recreation areas, institutional uses such as schools, places of worship and community centers, and light industrial uses of non-polluting nature such as warehousing, repair shops, and enclosed manufacturing, subject to the following provisions. Well, this is like, this is just the draft, so then they're gonna compress the dead space, right?
Yes,
Okay,
yes. So it's going to all the provisions, yeah.
Looks like we're going through faster with this.
yeah. So. Following provisions are lots front on provincial highway or township road maintained on a year-round basis. Potential land use conflicts, example noise, minimized using criteria, land use. We're proceeding on the basis of private water and sewer services. Light industrial uses shall be restricted to dry uses, i.e. using less than 10,000 liters of water per day. New industrial uses are clustered to minimize land use conflicts. Specific requirements for light industrial uses will be established in the implementing zoning bylaw. Specific requirements for each use will be established in the zoning bylaw. New lots shall have a minimum area of 0.8 hectare and minimum frontage of 60 meters along a public road unless a hydrogeological study demonstrates that a smaller lot size is appropriate. Regardless of the results of a hydrogeological study, new lots shall not be less than 0.4 hectares in size. All existing lots in Bonfield and Rutherglen are to be recognized at their present sizes and standards, subject to the provisions of the implementing zoning bylaw. New multiple attached dwellings, duplexes, or semi-detached dwellings may be permitted by the amendment to the zoning bylaw once the developer has demonstrated that there is an adequate supply of potable water and an approval for a public sewage disposal. A servicing options report consistent with Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks D5 series guideline may be required. Proponents of all new development must determine that there is sufficient local reserve system capacity for the treatment of hauled sewage from on-site sewage services. Expansion to the settlement area boundary shall only be considered at the time of the 5-year review. Residential focus areas within the
Another
Bonfield.
question?
Yes,
When we were going down, what areas were we talking about where it says lots front on a, I'm gonna go to number 5. Seems to kind of, yeah, where it's 5. Above 6. So where it says number 1, above 6,
Yes.
lots front of provincial highway or township road maintained on a year-round basis. So what lots are we talking still about in the town, in the hamlet? Or are we talking about all, is that just the hamlet area?
yes. This, I believe, section
Okay.
4.1, which we're
So
still
those
in.
points are only contained within the,
I
Okay.
read it unless I'm wrong. Yeah, it basically states, for example, it goes hamlet and then it starts off with residential uses and then it outlines certain criteria. Then it goes to B, which is local servicing.
yeah, okay,
And then so we're in that category now.
Mhm.
Local serving. Commercial uses, yeah, we're in the commercial uses right now.
Roman number 4.
Yeah,
Clustered industrial uses, we don't have any industrial parks, so. Don't know how they do that,
But in the official plan,
lots, I guess, they own 2-3 lots side by side, I guess they can do.
they're saying that the cluster, and I don't know if this will work with you, so I'm gonna see if I can make it work. I need to move this down. Gina, can you see a map on the screen now?
no, but it's, I have the document, they're at the end of the document, aren't they?
Oh, yeah, I put a map up on the screen, so I'm just not sure if you can see that screen or not.
No, I can't.
Okay, I will stop sharing and try to reshare.
I see that document.
Yeah, okay,
Map.
perfect. So this has our official plan on it. So if I go to a hamlet area for the industrial. So. So the employment focus area here, this would be employment lands. See, and it says employment
Okay.
focus area. So that's the cluster, so it wouldn't be like the pink is all over the place, the pink is all in one area, so that's the cluster.
Okay. So they have to have some kind of a business on those or?
Well, like currently now, there's like that place that used to build the garages. I don't know if they
Okay.
still do,
Canadian
and then that
campus?
school
Yeah.
that was across beside it,
Okay,
so it kind of was. Booming at one time.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so those are the employment. Focus areas that we have, so when this says that. Sorry, we're on page 38.
You're 38 or what?
Your. It's only the one on the screen that's different. So when it says new industrial uses are clustered to minimize land use conflicts, that's what it means by the cluster. So it's those employment lands, right?
Tanya's written away.
Thanks.
I just want to go back
I'll
into
just see
sharing.
the points, we're up to 411.
Okay.
Would you like me to-
Bill.
Yes, I would.
Yeah.
You're doing, I'm sure you're doing a fantastic job.
I
Okay.
do have
I
a
made a
comment.
garbage 25.
Ooh, look at what?
You guys are paid?
No. Not for this.
Oh, boy. Okay, so,
I think Ian has a question.
yeah.
Like so on number 8,
Mhm.
new multiple attached dwellings, duplexes, semi-detached. Are permitted, does that also include the buildings that are turning into 4 apartments?
Yeah, those would be the multi-attached ones, yeah.
Right, so are you able to say no if it doesn't meet the requirements of?
Yeah.
The septic,
Mhm,
okay,
yes.
and then. Where it mentions capacity, where am I here?
Mr. Richards, 9.
Yes.
Mhm.
What is sufficient local reserve system capacity?
So this means that if you're going to build a new home or if it's going to be. A tank, and that you need to get a pump, you need to come in to say that there is. A servicing company who would be able to service your tank and pump it
Okay,
out.
I wasn't sure if that meant like a brownfield that's in the area or.
You would, whatever company is gonna come and pump out your tank, you have to get a letter from them to say that they have the capacity to take your tank.
Okay.
Item 411, residential focus area. Within Bonfield and other current settlement areas, the plan identifies residential focus areas. The primary uses permitted in these residential focus areas will be residential uses including all forms of densities of housing, supporting uses including local serving commercial uses and conservation and public recreational uses shall also be permitted. Additional residential units shall be permitted in residential focus areas subject to the policies of this plan and provisions of the zoning bylaw. That's the only thing that was added. 412 community core focus areas within Bonfield settlement area. The plan identifies a community core focus area This area represents the core area of the community where the majority of commercial and civic activity is currently centered, and which is intended to continue fulfilling the function in the future. It's hiding. Primary uses permitted in the community core focus area shall be commercial, institutional, and public recreational uses. The conversion of these lands to other uses shall be discouraged.
We're just making a note that that means that the community core area, anything that is commercial right now, would be discouraged from being turned into residential.
Actually, there's two or one more point. There's just
Yeah.
adding again. On this page. Supporting uses, including residential uses and conservation uses, shall also be permitted. Is that right? It's part of that, right?
Yeah.
Okay. 413 employment focus areas. Within Rutherglen settlement area, the plan identifies employment focus areas. These areas represent the portions of the community where the majority of employment uses, i.e. commercial and light industrial activity, is currently centered. Those are the pink areas on the screen. There are some additional vacant lands within the Rutherglen settlement area that have frontage on Highway 17 and which are designated employment focus areas to direct their future use. The primary uses permitted in the employment focus area shall be light industrial uses of a non-polluting nature, such as warehousing, repair shops, and enclosed manufacturing, as well as commercial uses such as retail and offices. Number two, the preference for establishing industrial uses within the employment focus area shall be to create an industrial subdivision with internal local access roads. Where industrial developments have frontage on a provincial highway, the access policies of the MTO shall apply. Rural area, so nothing changed there. Rural area, the rural area land designation is shown on Schedule A. It is intent of this designation to preserve the rural character and setting of these areas. Agricultural land uses and operations shall be encouraged to allow for the continuance of agricultural operations. Low density residential development may also be permitted through severances and country subdivisions in accordance with the land division and minimum distance separation policies of this plan. Number two, the following uses are permitted in rural area designation. Agricultural uses, and then a whole bunch of stuff that's not allowed. Agricultural related uses and on-farm diversified uses as defined in 4.3. Forestry operations and existing woodlots, conservation and public recreation areas, golf courses, private clubs, private ski chalets, private hunt camps, private recreational uses characterized by large areas of open space and environmental areas. Institutional uses such as schools, places of worship, cemeteries, community centers are generally directed to the hamlet settlement area, but are permitted in the rural area. Industrial uses are subject to an amendment in the zoning bylaw in accordance with rural area policies for industrial uses as stated in policy 4 below. Commercial uses primarily serve the surrounding rural area by the amendment to the zoning bylaw and in accordance with rural area policies for commercial uses as stated in policy 4 below. Residential uses shall be limited to single detached dwellings and may be permitted in accordance with rural area policies applicable to residential uses. Additional residential units shall be permitted subject to policies of section 415(1) and provisions of zoning bylaw. Activities involving the hunting, trapping, and management of wildlife. Activities related to agriculture such as livestock assembly points, grain drying, animal husbandry, services, storage and fresh produce, custom machinery operation, and sprayers. Temporary uses for recreational or tourism purposes in cases where existing facilities are otherwise insufficient to support such a use may be permitted through the use of temporary use bylaw subject to the policies of this plan and the township zoning bylaw. Yeah.
So I have a few things. On D, I wondered if we could just leave golf courses and everything else that is in there is captured in I. So if we remove the words after that, because this is one of our problem, or one of the concerns that we keep facing as we come across planning matters. So if we allow the activities involving hunting, trapping, and management of lifestyle, but golf course is something different than a private hunt camp. So can we just leave that as golf course and then and leave that, but take everything else in behind there? There's a couple,
Ski chalets, that's not in money.
You want to remove private clubs, private ski chalets, private hunt camps,
yeah, I mean, it's
private
like,
recreational.
those would be, like cottages, right? Like,
No, like if somebody owns a piece of property and they just want a cross-country ski, they could put up basically a glorified shed and call it a ski chalet, right? Little wood stove in it, just somewhere to stay warm.
East Ferris has
yeah,
ski chalet.
yeah, they have a proper ski chalet, but again, it has the water, it has the septic, it has everything. As opposed to, and that's one of the concern areas for us, is that there are sheds with wood stoves that people do stay overnight. And that is not a permitted use.
The overnight piece.
Yeah,
On rural area,
yeah. So we have minimum sizes for, in our zoning, what implements it, there are minimum sizes, so the shed is not for human habitation.
but if you have a private club that is outdoor based, like archery, and if they have a shed the size of this room, and they just put a wood stove in it and have meetings, they're not living there, but they're definitely using them.
Yeah.
Right,
So there has to be some wording that says that they're allowed.
Yeah.
But
Is it private hunt camps that we get ourselves? Most of the challenge from there?
well, I mean, it seems the private club, like the Lions have a den that's in the rural area. And they like, but it's on full services, so it's fine to be there. So private clubs, and I kind of understand like dens or something, but maybe that's the word that we need. Maybe we just lump them all as one, and then that's a permitted use that would be different than a golf course. Because we go from saying you can have this, this, and this to a golf course, and then saying, going back to. Like, it's not all just consistent wording.
yeah, like a golf
And
course
it's
would
not
require a facility with washrooms and things like
Right.
that, right?
Mhm. I'm not sure what the
Further
answer to
state.
that would be.
I think that this
Yeah.
category D focuses on, well, other than private clubs, but everything else is kind of like an outdoor activity and it focuses on large areas of open space and environmental areas, right?
Like further in,
Mhm.
it does state that overnight accommodation is not permitted within the rural area. Except within a single and detached dwelling.
Oh, yeah, like it's
Seasonal
clear
dwelling
in the
or
rules that they're not
additional
allowed.
residential unit.
Like the bylaw clearly states that they're not allowed, it's just as soon as I know where Nikki's going, as soon as they put a fire and it's warm in there, then they're like, oh, I know I'm not allowed, and they're gonna stay the night, right?
Yeah.
And what if we took out private clubs and private hunt camps, because hunt camps, you're right, I think can fall into I. We took out private clubs, because what's in there is private recreational uses. So I guess then if somebody wanted to put a shed to keep archery equipment in and or cross-country skis in.
Mhm.
do we
Even
can?
if you said organized private club. Meeting space based on outdoor recreation and qualified it a little bit more.
Sure,
Because I think the snowmobile club has a clubhouse.
Yeah.
Right?
Who's up?
The snowmobile club,
Yes.
And maybe we just need to say private club house. Right, because then you have to have an organized club. Private organized clubhouse would probably alleviate some of the concerns and the feedback that we get.
As soon as you put the word house, you need septic and water.
Should.
so yeah, I mean, I guess would the difference for you be? You can have a storage shed on your property if you're keeping the ski equipment in there, but you can't eat it.
Yeah.
If you wanna heat it, then you gotta go a little further down the path of getting the permit to make it. Septic and waters. Is where you're going with that?
Somewhat, yes, because outhouses are still allowed too. But if you have water, then you have a clubhouse, you have water, where does the water go? It has to go to the septic.
And,
It's all the environmental piece that goes with that as well, right?
and where do we get in trouble with hunt camps? Cause,
Because people built sheds,
Shacks.
right,
put a stove in it, and called it a hunt camp.
right,
And stayed and live in it.
and in order to qualify, they would need an outhouse,
Minimum, yeah.
cause running water wouldn't be an option.
You
It
know,
would truck in water, right?
you have water cooking. Again, though, where does the water go when it goes in the sink?
I wouldn't want
It's
to,
usually gray water, so you have to have a gray water,
In the creek.
like,
I wouldn't want to leave part of private clubs. Private ski chalets. And then take up private hunt camps. It, to me, it basically represents the same thing. That the people are out there skiing, they're using the camp to
Building.
keep warm. The same private clubs, it says private clubs, wouldn't they all fall under the category of private clubs, whether it be a ski building or a hunt camp, or it says private recreational uses characterized by large areas of open space and environmental areas. So I just don't like to take, with all of the issues that we've had over private hunt camps, I don't want to leave the other private clubs in there and take out private hunt camps. I would say it doesn't seem to be fair, and that's my opinion.
What about like a minimal hectarage? Where you're allowed a hunting camp?
yeah. And that would go through by the zoning bylaw, so this is just saying they're permitted, I mean, someone's gonna spell out what that is. But those are the issues that we're having, so there is no minimum size that says, it just says a large tract of land, so that could be anything. A large tract to some people is 2.5 acres, and to some it's 25 or 50 acres. So we don't need to qualify that.
Yeah, I think the challenge I'm having is I fundamentally don't have an issue with somebody wanting to set up a little ski chalet or a little hunt camp. And if they have a wood stove in it, okay, just follow the rest of the bylaws, like, you know what I mean, like now it's an enforcement issue, so if they're spending the night in there, we have bylaw enforcement issue. But should we punish those that actually want to actually just set up a ski chalet or some level of an archery something out there, and they want to get together with their buddies during the day and do their thing, like feel like just we'd be taking away some pretty great use of rural land.
Can I just ask to be clarified, rural area, so this is outside of the hamlets.
Right.
And it's not residential rural, it's rural area, so there's nothing there, no services, nothing, it's just wilderness,
Yeah.
but it's private land though, right?
Yes.
Okay. So I heard, the comment that, they don't have an outhouse and all this other stuff, but what difference is it? Because if you go to Algonquin Park or things like that, like everyone's using the woods, right? And a hunt camp would be very similar because they'd also be boiling their water and frying over a fire and things like that. So it's almost going back to, you're taking the fire away from. Fire's a necessity, especially in the woods, right, for survival, so that's where I don't understand what the concern is. Well, why would they not be allowed to stay the night?
Because typically, well, there's a bunch, but it's typically not built to. We have shacks that are built, I'm sure you guys can all help, but we have shacks that are built that have, a 6x8 shack, it has a wood stove and people live in it. So there is no running water, there's no septic, but they're staying in it.
Like
So-
permit, like all year, you mean?
Yes, but they're built it under
See,
the
that-
guise
that-
of having a hunt camp. So it's just a matter of making sure that the policy that we're setting and having the conversations, because these are new new words in our policies, because right now you cannot camp in Bonfield. I completely agree, you should be able to camp on your property in Bonfield.
Yeah.
But how do you make it so that there's, and I agree, it's bylaw enforcement and making, and education, and making sure that everybody's aware of that. But how do you word it so that it still meets both and there's that good
Yeah.
balance?
I'm just trying to, from the other
Mhm.
spectrum, I don't know, I'm not saying that there's a leaning one way or the other, but I'm just saying, like, if I were to find myself owning 100 acres of wilderness here, and I'm not intending to put an 8x8 shack and live in it, but that's an extreme, and that should probably be a further deeper conversation of why is that happening, but I'm saying, like, if I do have, let's say, a lot of the time, people put a shed there because they don't wanna haul their gear and all this stuff, so they lock it up. And then they may have a cot in there or whatever, but it's like, at what point are you over governing someone's private property if they're seasonal, right? Like, if they're going there 2 weeks a year to hunt, or, to do mushroom picking in the fall. And use that as their home base for a couple of days, then it's kind of like. You can't really charge them with anything.
I kind of don't disagree, so
I don't even,
My
but I
reference
need the
point-
conversations
Yeah,
that
yeah.
when we go to implement and what we're
So the
doing.
reference point I have is the first time I ever went to hunt camp was this year, so. I went out this summer, helped my brother-in-law build a big flat deck, and then he has like a hunter's tent or whatever put on, so we still did it. Did that, I went out for the weekend, they spent the week out there. Had a great time, they built an outhouse and some deer stands. I don't, why do we care if that happens here? Like, there's no running water there, they built an outhouse, fair enough, so, but like, yeah, washed my hands. Water went onto the ground. Also skinned a deer and the blood went on the ground, it is what it is, right? So,
Yes.
I mean,
I see the other side too, where it's the extreme, like, if you do have, let's say, someone buys 100 acres and they say, okay, well, I'm gonna put up 4 shacks for my buddies, and these guys just went through divorces, and all of a sudden they're living in the woods, that's completely different, because now you're basically, you're creating something that's different, and I don't feel like that's the focus of this. I feel like, like, if someone says, like, even a private club, I'm the president of North Bay Hunters and Anglers, and we have 300 acres in North Bay city limits, and we have exactly the same situation that we're talking right now. We have a log cabin built in 1953, no hydro, no water, just an outhouse. And we have our meetings there, we have a generator, and once or twice a year, you have a couple guys and they get together and they spend the night there. Like, I'll do a retreat and I'll go and spend one night there. And if that's breaking the law, then that's, you know what I mean? Like, at some point,
You're not dwelling there, that's the key.
no. But again, it's like, you don't wanna. I'm just trying to understand, because I'm not fully aware of all the bylaws, right? And so that's why I just wanted to know further, why would someone get penalized for spending, let's say, even a week during hunting week? Why wouldn't they be able to spend that time? So.
And fundamentally, that's where we are in the situation, right? That's what we're facing now, is there are those types of buildings, and some are good and some are not.
Mhm.
Some have chosen to make it their permanent house. So if there's not the proper wording, then there is no opportunity for enforcement.
Yeah.
so what,
So like earlier when we said about dwelling, you're not dwelling there. Well, in order to prove that you're not dwelling there, someone, and this is what we're going through, someone has to go and make sure that on this day no one's there, the next day that no one's there, the next day there's no one there. So you constantly have to have the affidavits to prove that nobody's living there.
can we ask for their proof of their primary residence?
And then you get into where people actually have mail that goes to a primary residence in North Bay, and primary residence mail goes to their property in Buck. So we couldn't use that.
What
But if they had a primary residence in North Bay, then they're not going to be living out here, especially if they have a home in North Bay.
Until they get divorced, but they're how to prove primary residence, so if someone's driver's license is at their house in North Bay, and then the wife might have their primary as the one.
Whether
We've
municipalities
seen that.
regulate, like, how do they regulate hunting camps?
they typically just allow them and then set the parameters. So on when they're used, how many nights. That could absolutely happen, but I need the conversation to happen so that we know how to move forward.
So am I hearing from the group that we are more open to having these hunt camps in our rural area and promote this kind of use of the land? And then we just need to find language that probably already exists somewhere in another municipality to just kind of scope it in about so many nights a year or whatever. Blackwater can,
Need a permit for a building?
if we're
That's
gonna build,
simple.
yeah.
See, I agree. So one thing I wanna point out is, it's interesting, like, so. We're having a big focus on hunt camps, right? But really, if you think about it, any kind of private club, it doesn't matter, even if you're a motorcyclist, right? And you can have rural property and then build a tiny shed 8x8 and then say, 5 times a year, I get all my friends that are bikers and they arrive and then we stay there for long periods of time as well. And I'm a biker myself too, so I can relate. There's areas that basically open up their doors and say, yeah, this is the place. Anytime you're traveling across Canada, there's always a spot here. That's the thing. It actually happens. There's actually one in town that I know of. And so I just want to say, like, it's not just hunt camps, it's any kind of club, right?
Yeah, that could fall under the private club.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying,
Yeah.
like, we have a focus on the hunt,
But
on the hunters, but those are probably
That
the least likely to remain there because they get their quarry and they get out.
was where all the conflict was over the hunt.
Was it?
So.
Yeah.
well, they
that's
would
what-
call it a private club or / hunt camp. Which are not hunt camps, main uses, and then the large tract of land. And our minimum size, and this would be a part of the zoning, but our minimum building size for anyone who stays overnight is a seasonal cottage at 400 square feet.
Yeah.
I think it's 400.
Yeah,
See,
then
that
you apply for
point-
9-year variance.
Yeah, and if somebody wanted to put up, like my brother-in-law puts up a tent for a week or two and then takes it down,
Yeah.
his deck sits out there, always, of course. So if somebody wanted to do that, I don't care if they're sleeping in an 8x8
Yeah.
tent, they're obviously not living there if it's a tent,
It's a
right?
tent, yeah. Mhm.
Well, I hope.
Yes.
Well,
It's
Well,
way too cold.
Go back and check.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
so how come I have a club of girls and I have some property. How come I can't bring my trailer and we hang out for 2 weeks? Why is that not allowed?
But you could do that.
On
Like, are you
your
talking
residence.
like your property that you have your dwelling on? Or are you talking
No,
just?
I'm talking about a vacant lot.
No, our bylaws don't allow for trailers on vacant lots.
Okay, so we'll just build something not as nice. And we'll just
doesn't
stay
take
there for
much
2
for
weeks,
everything.
but we're not a hunt camp. We're just a girls' camp.
Yeah, it would be a private club.
Yeah,
It still has to be built to code. And the minimum size.
I see where you're going. though.
Yeah.
Like, you make a very valid point, absolutely, there's a bit of a rub here between our bylaws for sure.
yeah, and the boys are like a hunt club or, I mean, a trailer. You know, what's the difference? What's my harm? You're saying the boys can go and hunt for sometimes, different guys come in. And why can't I put my trailer on and hang out with the girls?
21 days, I think you're.
That's Crown Land.
Caroline?
No, I'm talking private, I'm talking, say, my own private land.
What does our bylaw say?
Our bylaw right now says none.
None,
No,
None.
when did that change?
No,
that never
none.
changed, that was something that was misspoken.
You're not allowed to have,
Oh,
yeah, our bylaws say 0,
okay.
unless you have a primary residence. If
Well,
you-
I'd rather see
I-
somebody's trailers than some,
If you have a primary residence, you can use your trailer for up to 120 days a year. if you had on your property where your house is.
No.
You
No,
can,
no, I'm talking vacant,
yeah, yeah, our bylaw.
vacant, just like these guys with their hunt camp.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Our
but you're not under, I know that, but then that's not, it's not making sense then for this, you're stating a hunt camp,
mhm.
That's a
but,
building.
but, uh, but you're saying I can't put a trailer on my vacant property. That,
That's
like,
illegal.
that doesn't even make sense though to me.
One gets
I agree.
assessed and the other doesn't, Dina.
One's what?
One is assessed and one is not. A trailer
Oh,
doesn't.
no, if the guys could have 10 by 10, there's nothing to
Doesn't have
assess.
value and-
No.
So.
There's nothing to
if you have a
assess.
hundred- if
And
you
that's
have a
not a
hundred-
hunt camp. Hunt camp,
Well,
exactly,
trailer's not,
we're not exactly getting rich on
Yeah.
that.
You park it and you can just pull it, it's not going anywhere, it's not,
That's not a building. either.
no, so, I mean, I agree with,
It's made for the road.
So like, I don't think any of I'm thinking the majority of them aren't really assessed as a building
No,
unless,
Well, no, they are, because you
Yeah,
need
but-
to have a permit, so if we say there's a minimum building size. Because we know, let's assume everyone will spend a night or two in a building that has a wood stove, and they're out there anyway. And it can be with an outhouse, they are completely legal. But if we had a minimum building size of 400 square feet. It kind of meets the building code, and then. On a
Okay.
lot.
okay, so
size-
therefore, people on a big,
5 acres, that would have to be determined, because it would again be different. Like a gun club, you probably, you're shooting guns, so you need more than 5 acres. To shoot guns,
well, apparently you can shoot
Um,
guns
yeah,
right,
there's RCMP requirements for that, which we have to go every year.
yeah, so, and I don't know what that minimum size would
But
be, but that building.
isn't there, you can shoot guns,
Go
Yes,
ahead.
you could discharge here in Rockfield.
No, not in.
yeah, you can discharge,
Not in the hamlet, I mean the township.
Yeah.
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 What
However,
would
if you
it,
look at the. I can shoot my back.
what would it take for? the
yeah,
town-
you can shoot your gun right on your property.
Yeah,
in-
what would it take for the town to reconsider the trailer?
Well, this is just a conversation
No,
that
I
we're
know, but-
starting, but, and it's a conversation that has to happen, but
Yeah.
I think the whole trailer thing is coming out like next year.
It is,
Yeah,
okay, no,
yeah.
because I, just thinking about it, it does, I get. I get it, if there's lots on the lake and you know, and someone parks a trailer that's, you know. Ragtag and it's falling apart and I get it, and you wanna maintain, your waterfront and represent the. The waterfront basically in a nice way, right?
and the hamlets.
Yeah, sure, but, I think that if someone comes and they have 100 acres and they wanna pull a trailer and park it for a week to do hunting, they should be able to, and if. So maybe there's an exemption in saying that if you're a wilderness lot, then you can do that seasonally and say. Same concept, 120 days, just like you can at your own lot, if you have a residence, right? You could do that, and if maybe you put restrictions, say certain lots at this waterfront are not permissible, and whoever buys the lot is gonna be notified about that, right? So then you kind of appease both sides to an extent, right?
But I
And you can
think
do,
with the trailer, with a building, for one thing, it's not vacant land then, you have a building on it. But when the trailers are on there, I believe all of the properties are taxed as vacant land, right? They're not taxed, the trailers stay on the lake. And you have people that are paying, I don't
Oh, yeah,
know,
no, I,
possibly $5,000 to have their home on the lake. And then you bring in the trailers and you can't tax them because it's vacant land. So that makes a difference, that would make a
but
difference to
it
me.
shouldn't be, again, I understand about having, big house versus a trailer right beside it, but if you have a secluded lot and like people don't have enough money to build, then it sucks for them that they've put all their money to buy this lot and they're trying to get a permit and they said, okay, in the next 5 years, we have a 5-year plan that we're gonna build a house. We want to,
That makes sense.
but in the meantime, we'd also like to enjoy the fact that we bought this lot and swim in the lake. So like I don't know, it's like, I've actually just met someone this past weekend and told them I'm on the committee and they actually sold their lot because the township said you couldn't have a trailer. So I had a direct meeting with someone that literally sold their lot.
Yeah.
And said that I've grown up and bought it all my life, but we couldn't afford a house, so we just sold the lot.
So, but the people that have just a vacant land are taxed on vacant land. Because it is assumed that that taxation rate is there, because it is assumed that they have no use of the landfill, no use of our roads, no use of our amenities that we provide as a township. So the taxation on a vacant lot is that, because there is no assessment value to the lot with no home on it.
Excuse me though, like, a building, say if somebody builds I can just imagine the assessment is gonna by 20 building on it. And they don't, they put mediocre, low grade flooring, everything. The assessment's gonna be so low anyways, it's probably not gonna be much value. I'm already highly assessed on a vacant lot on the lake.
Right,
They're probably paying more than somebody in the hamlet already.
Yeah, but it's like, from my
So,
perspective.
so if you wouldn't allow a trailer and they just build a small, the minimum size and put low grade, you're not gonna get much for an assessment anyways for tax value. And I'm not just talking about a trailer on the lake, I'm talking about a trailer, somebody has 5 acres or on a rural piece. And a travel trailer, and just because they don't want to hunt there, like why, I guess you get a gun and say, well, I'm just hunting. I don't know, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah,
And lots of municipalities also do trailers by licensing, the same as short-term rentals. So, and these are the discussions that we're having come spring, hopefully. When we take this to the public meeting, or I think the conversation started a little bit, we have a survey going out that has some questions in it that'll be thought provoking and kind of give us a feel on where the community might be laying.
They're very good discussions, what everybody is talking about tonight, very good.
yeah, we,
It needs to be.
definitely one of the big issues when we ran for
Mhm.
auction was
I'm gonna say that.
on both sides.
Definitely both sides.
Mhm. Yeah, because sometimes, you gotta look at it, if you're talking about hunt camps and trailers, or people being able to do something for a couple of weeks of the year or set up accommodations and spend the night, well then, not everybody hunts. They might use it for other reasons, like you say, going for hikes or collecting mushrooms or whatever it may be.
Yeah, so stay tuned. I think this is something our municipality is gonna be working on for the next little while, because if we change nothing, the very long-standing bylaw that we have says trailers are not permitted on any piece of property, any vacant piece of property right now. So council is opening the conversation to say, do we need to revisit the bylaw? Because if we don't revisit it, it's just an enforcement thing that we need to do. But if we revisit it, it's how far do we crack that open, right? So is it minimum setbacks off of a large piece of property? So obviously, if we do minimum setbacks, we don't even need to say it's minimum of 5 acres. We can just say you need to be so many meters back off of any of your property lines. Well, that will dictate how big a piece of property it is. We could say absolutely not on the waterfronts. No, no property that touches water on it. Like there's all of those
Yeah.
scope pieces that we can.
You can also put into that, like, that that they have to demonstrate when licensing or whatever, demonstrate that they can actually dispose of their own waste, right? So then there's that aspect that, because it is a concern on the water. In the woods, it's not a big concern, it's different, right? But I mean, you can demonstrate and say that you show us that, like that you're gonna go and take it out every 2 weeks and go wherever the You know, there's a couple areas around the area that they can go and hook up to, right?
And it could be much like the other components in here where you have to show that there's capacity and you have an agreement with somebody to take the team.
Yeah, this is not gonna be a fun one for
Yeah.
council.
So
We're gonna piss half the people off right away. Yeah, absolutely.
If you want to encourage setting up more residents, well,
Yeah, it's,
you have to discourage
Mhm.
trailers on empty lots.
especially because there's a lot of tax revenue that we're walking away from if we just.
Yeah.
Right. And people need
On
housing, like,
waterfront.
there is a housing
High
crisis,
housing crisis.
That's why.
balance
Yeah.
all of these uses.
Yes, they are all residential lots, right?
Yeah.
They're not.
And Gina's points, then, you know.
So my other-
The hunting camp, allowed to turn into 4 apartments?
We'll move along, we'll go till 9. Is that okay?
9.
It's
I'm usually in bed by 9:15, I gotta drive fast to get home.
Be too hungry by 9. 8 o'clock.
There's some
sorry.
gingerbread I saw over there. You can even decorate it. for you.
I have another one on the same section though, J. It talks about activities related to agricultural. And I wondered if we could just put them under 2A. I don't know why they're separated out.
Agriculture is good.
And talks about agriculture.
Well, then we'd have to go to 4.3, and what's 4.3?
I think it's prime egg.
It's a.
Oh, it's
housekeeping
already
item.
there.
Yeah, 4.3 is agriculture uses. That, and we talked about that the last one,
If there's an efficiency to find one.
yeah. And I don't understand what K means.
Yeah, temporary.
Temporary
use.
uses for recreational or tourism purposes in cases
Yeah, that's
where
right.
existing facilities are otherwise insufficient to support such a use may be permitted through a temporary use bylaw.
So my thought was like, is
Oh,
this concerts in Farmer's Field? Like you can do a temporary use bylaw for, I just, and that's a question for the planner, I wasn't here when this got drafted, so I didn't understand where that came from.
Is that an add-on?
Yeah.
It's a good question, planner. What-
Like I know
Yeah, I'll
that
ask the
Yeah,
planner.
on a ranch, they sometimes host weddings.
Good, well,
Yeah.
it's recreational or tourism, not, like, what if, like, for example, Boy Scouts of Canada, right? And if you have 100 acres.
Is that
and-
jamboree?
Yeah, you
Yeah.
can do something like that. But you'd have to obviously bring in porta potties for the event and show that you can, whatever, right?
Yeah,
Again, description.
yeah, that's how I just wanted to. I'll put that it needs to be more defined,
With examples?
yeah. That was it for me for that section.
Okay. It's all good. All right, so 4.2.1, commercial and industrial policies. The plan anticipates the establishment of commercial and industrial uses in the rural area. In evaluating applications for zoning bylaw amendments for such uses, council shall consider the following: A, the possible impact of these uses upon adjacent residential uses. The proposed development does not constitute ribbon development. A dwelling unit accessory to an industrial or commercial use for security guards or the owner operator either within or separated from the industrial or commercial use may be permitted, subject to policies of this section 315 and the provisions of the zoning bylaw. I think I read this one already, no? Maybe not. Accesses shall be limited to curb ramps on highways and shall be limited in number to 2 and shall be established in accordance with MTO standards. Parking and loading facilities shall be provided on site. A landscape buffer between commercial or industrial and residential uses shall be provided. The development is approved in accordance with government regulation and acts governing such uses. And lastly, all industrial activities shall be subject to the approval of all ministries or agencies governing the activity. All good. Residential policies. The character of the rural area shall be maintained by permitting residential development subject to the following provisions. Overnight accommodation is not permitted within the rural area except with a single detached dwelling seasonal dwelling, or an additional residential unit. I think we had this conversation.
Yeah, that's.
Short-term- Yeah,
Yeah.
short-term rental accommodations are subject to the general development policies of this plan. I think that's IJK should probably be ABC. Development shall be subject to the minimum distance separation formulae, what I and, or 1 and 2. Consent policies. Consents may be
Okay,
permitted
so-
subject, yes,
Can I? For residential, you're saying it's not permitted, except within a single detached dwelling. What about people that have little bunkies and their kids are camping out in it and, you know, doing what kids do? So
seasonal dwelling maybe?
you're saying that legally I can't have, pardon? Pardon?
But a resident unit is set up with water and the sewer and it's connected, but. I guess technically, like if you had a tree house. Or.
Well, it's not connected.
Well, this refers to.
So I'm against the law if I
permitted-
let my,
But this doesn't refer to the permission of someone staying in a bunkie, it refers to permitting residential development. Right, so you can develop a seasonal dwelling and then sleep in it, you can build a single dwelling unit and
Yeah.
sleep in it. But it's not saying that you can't sleep in a bunkie or a tent on your lot, I don't think. Is that?
I think.
well,
it is.
I'm not reading it right then.
No, I think you're right, Dina.
What I'm saying, what I'm thinking is what it is, meaning that I can't allow my grandkids, oh, I'd be illegal and saying, oh, let's have a sleep out in the bunkie tonight. Like, aren't we getting a little too extreme? Like,
But it's because I think some of these add-ons are because we do have some extreme cases in. The
but we
community.
can't let an extreme case dictate our whole of our official plan. Like, we have to,
I agree.
we can't be doing this because, oh my goodness. Where am I living?
There have been instances, however, where. Buildings
There's
do not have
instances, it's
occupation.
not the norm. It's not norm, then. Yeah, but that's occupation, then you've got other bylaws or other laws of Ontario that come into effect. I don't think we need to stipulate that I can't have my grandchildren have a sleepover in the bunkie, or I'm, against the official plan. Like, I think.
But then
it's
nobody's
getting
gonna
too
report that
extreme.
you planted a bunkie with your grandkids either. But.
No, but
I made a note
why
to ask-
are we having it here?
You're living in it.
Yeah, no,
I
I
made a note to ask the planner how to word that,
differently.
yeah.
Yeah, you made a good point, for sure.
See, I'm reading it differently.
I
because
guess
see
you
the-
wouldn't have liked when I had,
I'm reading residential development. I feel like this is focused on new developments and not the fact that you're sleeping in a bunkie, but I don't know. It's not clear.
Yeah.
So it needs to be reworded.
Permit bunkies.
No,
Yeah,
right?
as long
Well-
as there's. A bunkie is fine, as long as there is a
Residence.
supporting residential.
Yeah.
And that's what the additional residential unit
Yeah.
means.
Okay, 423 consent policies. Consents may be permitted subject to the following provisions. New non-farm lots shall have a minimum area of 1 hectare and a minimum frontage of 60 meters unless a hydrogeological study demonstrates that a smaller lot size is appropriate. Regardless of the result of the hydrogeological study, new lots shall not be less than 0.6 hectares in size. New farm lots shall have a minimum lot size of approximately 20 hectares and a minimum frontage of 100 meters. The severed and retained lot shall be an appropriate size for the uses proposed and consistent with the surrounding area. The lots shall conform to the consent policies of this plan as outlined in the land division policies of this plan. No questions?
Yeah,
I think I did.
I do. If Tigania wants to come in and put a subdivision in a rural area, you can't do it because the lots have to be that big.
But he would do that through the subdivision. agreement.
Subdivision, that's it.
Yeah. So he would have a subdivision agreement with the whole 20 acres all marked out, and then those lots would be smaller.
We did allow,
Yeah.
the last subdivision, we did have smaller lot sizes.
Grandfather clause.
Yeah,
And if somebody owns 5 acres and they want to sever an acre to give to their kids to build a house on, can't do that because it's minimum size.
Not an acre. But that's gonna be provincial policy, because you need to have, they say 1 hectare in order to be self-sustaining for your private well and private septic.
Seems counter, yeah, but even building a garage, no problem.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yes, I think that's why there's so many municipalities who have these conflicting issues and all, because now we have a housing crisis and the province is reducing the,
Burden.
yeah. Yes, and the rules so that you can have more for housing, but then it's still more restrictive for everything else, so it's, how do you balance where we're going into the future when we're in this mid right now, just transitioning in, so I think a lot of municipalities are struggling under the new official plan, which is why I also think the plans are taking so much longer to do now. Especially at the industry level.
So 424 country lot subdivision policies. Country lot subdivisions may be permitted subject to the following provisions. A, permitted uses are single detached dwellings. Density shall be a minimum of 1 unit per hectare.
Hector's a 2 point,
5 acre.
2.5.
so that's my point, like that's. Like if Tigania wants to come in,
Yeah.
it's gotta be,
2.5 acres.
2.5 acres, minimum lot size.
is that not restrictive to trying to get?
So how it works. I think section 7 later has policies about the studies that you have to do if you want a smaller lot. So you have to do your hydro G study, you have to do, like, there's a number of studies that you have to do to justify that the land can sustain it on smaller lots. So not impossible, but as a general rule of thumb, these are the rules, and then do all these studies to see if you can't meet those rules.
Because of the size of the septics now.
Mhm.
People have a lot of toys too, snowmobile, ATV, RV, where do you put all that?
And there's tons of, like, there's new septic systems out there that the province has not approved yet. But we can't factor those in because they're not approved.
New meaning smaller.
Yes.
Or
Okay, so
that is the big lot though. New lots shall have a minimum area of 1 hectare and a minimum frontage of 60 meters unless a hydrogeo study demonstrates that a smaller lot size is appropriate. Regardless of the results of the hydrogeo study, new lots shall not be less than 0.6 hectare. An adequate supply of potable water is available for each lot, and soils are suitable to permit individual private sewage disposal systems and or communal sewage disposal system. A servicing options report may be required to determine the most appropriate servicing method, and a hydrogeo study may be required to determine the minimum dimensions of lots. So that's where it says that basically you can get a smaller lot size.
Mhm.
Access to individual lots shall be from public roads internal to the subdivision. Internally, so internal public roads shall have access to major existing public road maintained on a year-round basis by the township and serviced by hydro and school buses. Existing trees shall be preserved and planting shall take place where necessary so that a substantial portion of the area of each lot is tree covered. Natural topography, surface drainage pattern, and vegetation cover shall be considered in the design and layout of lots and street patterns. Existing topography or vegetation shall provide sufficient screening to minimize the number of dwellings, which can be viewed directly from the existing roads. A maximum of 5 lots shall be created through an individual country lot subdivision. A maximum of 10 lots shall be created in a country lot subdivision in any 1 year that's in township. Country lot subdivisions must be located where they will not impede the potential expansion of the hamlet settlement areas. Development shall take place only by a registered plan of subdivision. Agriculture,
Can I-
yep,
Can we stop just so I
Yeah.
can generate some conversation?
yep.
My G, I do not know what substantial portion means. So this is where if we have 5 acres, we've cut the trees down to build the house, and we're like 2 acres is 75% still substantial portion? Do we want 20? Like, what's the definition of substantial
Well,
portion?
it's hard to put
And I get you can't.
a number numeric because, you know, landscape, if you have rock outcrop, and then you're supposed to have 30%, you know, green, well, you can't achieve it because you have rock, right? Or a cliff or something like that. So I think it's hard to put numerical, but substantial just means that it's greater than. I don't know.
I know before it said that the trees beside the road,
Yeah, so on the other side, even if, you know, you wanna make your parking lot bigger, you have to plant another trees, so in here. So my question, I mean, we're the ones gonna be implementing this, so we need to understand the thought processes behind it,
Mhm.
so. I'm looking to the committee to say, what would that substantial be?
this is just a
For that, you would work with the person wanting to develop the land and come to an agreement, I don't know.
Mhm.
You want a permit, we'll plant a tree.
Yeah. And my other one, just for the conversation, Pete, are you on tree stuff?
Yeah,
Okay.
could it not be a percentage? You're not permitted to remove whatever percentage of existing trees within your property to develop, like, so. Can't remove more than 30% of the trees on your lot, the existing trees on your lot.
Personally, I don't want any trees closer than the tree height to my house. Just in case.
Right, I get that for sure. But I mean,
on
I
a 1 acre lot.
There
you
you go.
build
don't know what that, like, I don't know what percentage means, but.
And I can bring this back to the planner, because the province did make every municipality have a tree canopy bylaw. So there's tons of wording out there that would kind of maybe help this. I just wanted to find a little bit more what substantial would mean to everybody.
And as soon as we give them their occupancy permit, they're probably just gonna cut down whack trees if they don't want them anyways.
Absolutely.
You don't want any trees falling in your house.
Already, I know from some of the conversations, our final enforcement needs to increase.
What is country lot, like, what does that mean? Does it have to be tested in the rural?
Yeah, it goes back to this back here.
It's the same size as any money. We call it a country lot.
Yeah, but it's a lot, I think it's because the country subdivision is making the policies that you can have 5 created through individual. Lot subdivision. And then you could do 10 a year, so these would be separate than a subdivision that would have more. Which I'm not so sure about,
Right.
because. If I have 100 acres, I can only create 10 country lots, which is 2.5 acres, but I could do subdivision. Under the full subdivision policies, and I could have. Closer to 40. I'm not exactly sure what those policies are either. Just wanted to generate conversation,
all
to
you
see what
want.
everyone else is thinking on. 10 a year would work if we're just talking smaller properties. If not 100 acre parcels that people would want to turn into.
So there's a subdivision with 5 lots. That would be with a max. And then a maximum of 10 lots.
Mhm.
So you can do 5 lots in a year.
Do you wanna know
And
what's
less.
never gonna be afforded to build is a subdivision with 5 lots? By
Right,
the time you put in a road and you're like, nobody can afford that.
Well, depends how long the road.
Well, even
Yeah,
still,
still long
it
enough,
has to be long enough, cause look at the frontage you have to have.
60 meters
What does it mean,
times
like-
5, that's
Yeah.
300 meters, that's 50,000.
Yeah, so I'm like.
and the only thing I see from this part is it doesn't say that it has to go. Through the other subdivision policies. So it just says that it has to be a registered plan of subdivision, so that just means when they go through to register it. They would register still as an M to register a subdivision, but maybe it doesn't follow all the same policies. So this is loosening the rules if that were the case, but that's how I'm kind of reading it. that's loosening the rules that we would then be allowed 5 per property and 10, because right now we can only do 3 plus 1 retained. And once it's done forever.
That's for consent.
So this subdivision allows more consents.
Well, it's a subdivision.
Yeah,
Honestly, I don't truly understand the 3 plus existing. I don't know why we're restricted. We have 100 acres. We're gonna say-
provincial wide though.
Well, you need access. You're
I
not
think
gonna
that's what's
create
killing your hand.
locked in.
You have 100 acres on a country road that is on the corner. Man, oh man, you can create a ton of lots there. A lot more than 4,
Mhm.
but
And potentially more than 5, but I think that this is, I think that this is. Making that a little easier to develop the land.
Sure. And here you want to keep the rural setting, so that's. You. And that's ribbon settlements, if you do that, like all along the roads. I don't know, I can't see far in the future.
Okay, those are mine.
Five two.
And
that one's 5 minutes tops.
10-2, we got 9 minutes left.
I thought you said we're staying till 9.
I'm watching that. No.
You were joking.
We're gonna stay till
Oh my
9.
God.
Maybe we stay till 9.
I thought you were
They
serious.
didn't change the time, they were still on daylight saving.
Okay, we have 9 minutes left according to this.
Oh, I'm looking at that clock. I started by that clock.
We can't afford a clock that tells the right time.
I can't reach it.
Okay, go one more
One
page.
more, okay, so agricultural 4.3. The agricultural area land designation is shown on Schedule A. It is the intent of this designation to protect agricultural lands to ensure their viability on a long-term basis by protecting them from incompatible uses and preventing their fragmentation. Lands designated agriculture area are those lands where prime agricultural lands predominate, which includes Canada Land Inventory, classes 1, 2, and 3 soils in this order for protection, and associated class 4 to 7 organic soils. The following permitted uses shall be permitted in the agricultural area designation. Agricultural uses such as growing of crops, including nursery, biomass, and horticultural crops, raising of livestock, raising of other animals for food, fur or fiber, including poultry and fish, aquaculture, apiaries, agroforestry, maple syrup production, and associated on-farm buildings and structures, including but not limited to livestock facilities, manure storage, valuable retaining facilities, and accommodation for full-time farm labor when the size and nature of the operation requires additional employment. Also permitted is agricultural related uses, including farm related commercial and industrial uses that are directly related to farm operations in the area, support agriculture, benefit from being in close proximity to farm operations, and provide direct products and or services to farm operations as a primary activity. Limited on-farm diversified uses, including those that are secondary to the principal agricultural use of the property and are limited in the area. On-farm diversified uses include, but are not limited to, home occupations, home industries, agritourism uses, and uses that produce value-added agricultural products. Ground-mounted solar facilities are permitted in prime agricultural areas, including specialty crop areas, only as on-farm diversified uses. Agricultural-related residential uses, including single detached dwellings and additional residential units in accordance with section 315(1), wayside pits and portable asphalt plants in accordance with this zoning bylaw, forestry, public conservation, public open space, and passive recreation. All new land uses in the agricultural area designation shall comply with the provincial minimum distance separation formulae as amended from time to time. Any questions? No. Agricultural related commercial and industrial use policies. The plan anticipates the establishment of agricultural related uses. Council shall consider zoning bylaw amendments to establish such uses provided the proposed on-farm diversified use A is compatible with surrounding agricultural uses and does not hinder the agricultural uses. B, provides suitable buffering between adjacent residential uses. And C, would not create adverse impacts to natural features or water courses which could not be mitigated. D, does not require large volumes of water or generate large amounts of effluent. And E, has a maximum area of 2% of the lot area of the subject property up to a maximum of 1 hectare. And is directly related and secondary to primary agricultural use. 4.3.2, on-farm diversified uses. The following on-farm diversified uses shall be permitted as of right with any agricultural use. A, farm vacations, bed and breakfast establishments, occasional agricultural demonstrations such as plowing matches or livestock shows or similar events. 2, other on-farm diversified uses may be permitted subject to a zoning bylaw amendment subject to the following criteria. A, the on-farm diversified use compatible with and will not hinder surrounding agricultural operations. It is limited to the area to a maximum of 2% of the property area up to 1 hectare. And C, lot area and coverage for on-farm diversified use shall be in accordance with the province's guidelines for permitted uses in Ontario's pre-owned agricultural areas. And consent policies may be permitted subject to the following provisions. The severed lots shall be for agricultural or residential use. An original township lot shall be divided into more than 2 parcels, including the retained lot, not be divided into more than 2 parcels. C, new non-farm lots shall have a minimum area of 1 hectare and frontage 60 meters, same as the other lots, 6.6 hectare in size. Maximum of non-farm lots shall be 4 hectares. New farm lots shall have a minimum lot size of approximately 40 hectares and a minimum frontage of 100 meters. The severed and retained lot shall be an appropriate size for the uses proposed and consistent with the surrounding area. Severances of a residence surplus to an agricultural use shall be considered, provided that the residential lot shall be sufficient size only to accommodate residential uses and shall not be, they're not limited to continuation of the agricultural uses. The retained lot shall be rezoned to prevent future residential development on the agricultural lot. Where both rural and agricultural designations apply to a lot, the proposed severance shall be located within the rural designation wherever feasible. The lot shall conform to the consent policies of this plan as outlined in the land divisions policy of this plan.
That's a lot.
That is a lot. I feel like if we start next time, we have to redo this point, yeah, because it's a lot going on. Like, for example, that if you sever, the retained lot shall be rezoned to prevent future residential development on the agricultural land.
So this goes back to the conversation in the study that I showed you last week for the prime agricultural section.
Yeah.
So this is the prime agricultural rules. So the province is anywhere where there is prime agriculture, they are protecting that as much as they possibly can. So we can put in policies, but in every section in this, the province is going to tell us whether they accept our policies or not. But for prime agriculture, that they specifically asked us to do this study, and specifically they have things in the PPS. And dividing it into 2 lots is in the PPS. Like you can't diminish or take away the agricultural use.
And I can appreciate that. But the fact, I think it was in 1997 that the province designated no prime farmland here in our township. Since that time, and I've been on the planning board ever since, and we have been granting severances. And on some of the properties last year, some is 3 severances or whatever they could get, we granted that. And now that's all changed because the government says, yes, there is private farmland. And I think that when you're protecting prime farmland, We should have protected it a long time ago. At the time that they said we don't have prime farmland, I was of the impression that, yes, there's a lot of farming here. At the time, there were people doing farming. And at that time, I think that we should have been protected. It should have been protected then. I don't know. I just think it's, I don't know, what's the expression, closing the barn door after all the horses got out. That's exactly what we're looking at here. And I don't have a problem protecting farmland. I know that we do need the farms to, in order for us to live. But I'm just not understanding it, that's all. Simple as that.
I agree with you, it's. But I wanna make a comment regarding, so you drive, I'm not 100% familiar with township, but I know my regular routes there, I. See, there's lots of farms and then, fence line and then it's wilderness, right? Like, basically, that those lots have been cleared 100 years ago and now they became agricultural. So here we have situations in the planning, in the zoning bylaws here that. You can't clear too many trees. But it's adjacent to an agricultural lot, so at some point, you're gonna look at it and say. This guy wants to clear it, let him clear it, let him make a farm field, and that way we're actually adding more agricultural land in a sense. Sure, it's a long-term investment, it's not gonna happen overnight, it might take 5 to 10 years for it to be. To be cleared fully, but I mean, like. You're limiting, it's just weird, like there's like a rule for everything, and so you can't clear a tree lot fully. Cause you want trees, but you can't, like, you have to maintain your agricultural land and you can only sever it once because it says 2 parcels, so basically you're only allowed to do it once. And again, that whole family thing too, I mean, like. Dan Holmes got, he's severed for his daughter once, that means he's stuck now, he's not gonna be able to do it, because it says original township lot, right? So it's grandfathered in, or is it going from this point forward?
That's one of my notes, is to define original township, is that the original township is. A lot of properties obviously are not 100 acres, that's original town, or is it original as. When it's passed, right, so it'll. And
Yeah.
different municipalities have different ways of looking at that, so we need to be clear on how we're doing that. Yes, and I completely understand that there's so many different policies in here. This agricultural piece here is just those lands that we showed you that were in those big
Yep.
blue boxes.
Which also,
last week.
we're very, arbitrary. I mean, very defined this way, but I'm like, there's not very much, what color was it, pink or something?
Yeah.
There's not very much pink in that square, why that square?
Mhm.
And you drive down Trunk Road. And you used to drive down there and there were the big farms. Now you drive down Trunk Road and look at the homes, look at the beautiful homes on Trunk Road. You drive down, which was the one we did sever 3 lots last year, McNutt Road. That was prime farmland as far as we were concerned at the time that the government designated not. And then you go down Peace Road, we did 3 severances there. And now that there's a housing crisis, and I think that any remaining farmers, if you've had the other people next door to you and they were able to sever lots off to their family, that's the only way that the young people are going to get a home. If their parents give them a lot to build a home, you can't walk into town now, the young children or the young kids that have just got married and have families go in and pay $500,000-600,000 for a home. And I see that at a time when there's a housing crisis, we're going to stop that for the land that's left, but maybe it's to protect the prime. We
think there's
still
a-
see cows and everything
Yeah, yeah.
down there.
I think that there's a political play that's happening, right? So as they're urbanizing more of the southern farming land. They want to be able to say that they've maintained X number of hectares of farmland throughout Ontario. If they can net neutral of that, even though they're eaten up. Like way more in the south, then they're gonna force northern Ontario, or rural Ontario, like further out from the big cities. To have to like prime agricultural land, hence the shift. Obviously, it's just a matter of them trying to keep up the number of hectares or whatever that they have as farming.
Numbers being raised.
Yeah, that's what's happening, we're just subject to it, right? That's my opinion.
Southern problems often become northern problems.
Mhm.
That's why
Because we're not
we're
doing
viewed through one lens, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, a little something.
You have the climate shift too, so some land that probably weren't prime, will become prime, I don't know.
Yeah, even development road, there used to be lots of farms there, there's a lot of building there now. Well, so I don't know, that's something to talk about, and I'm sure we're gonna, when the people come into our meeting for their official plan, there's gonna be lots of conversation about that. Mhm. So, are we ready to put it on hold till our next meeting?
Yep.
Okay, I need a mover. Jason? And the seconder,
Gina put her hand up, I seen it.
Gina,
Just pick somebody.
what time is it?
8:05.
Yeah,
You
fine.
kept us late.
That's your watch, it's 8:10 up there. Moved by Jason, seconded by Gina, that the planning advisory committee meeting hereby be adjourned at 8:05. All in favor, carries. I think we had a really good meeting tonight.
I would have liked it if you guys got a little further when I wasn't here.
I tried.
I guess we talked.
I read past the first couple of minutes, but then the discussions opened up.
Yeah. And everything ground up, fair enough.
That's my problem.
Good night, Gina.
Good night, Gina, thank you.
Okay,
Not my problem.
when are we having another meeting? Hello?
Good stuff.
Let's establish that. Hang on, we're gonna establish the next meeting.
You invaded my property.
Well, that's a policeman.
Don't let me
The
forget,
seventh.
Jason, you remind me, it's your
See
meeting.
why you can't talk?
Well, I missed my own meeting, so what am I supposed to say here?
So maybe if I can put a question out to everybody at the next meeting, because we're not through this yet, but I'm sure that we could get the
next
the
meeting.
planners working on some of the amendments. Do we want to invite them into the next meeting? Or do you want to just finish going through this ourselves?
My opinion is we finish going through it ourselves, because I think as soon as we bring in the planners, the whole conversation shifts, we lose the ability to kind of go through
Okay,
fine tooth comb.
Um,
And hopefully,
They're probably have 2 more meetings, just chatting.
right, so we're 2 weeks out if we do the next 2 weeks in a row, right?
so the next Monday would be December 4th.
Is that next Tuesday?
Next Monday.
First, second,
December
third,
fourth.
yeah.
Everybody good with that?
Are you good with December
We're
4th?
making up the lost time, eh? You're like, this committee's easy.
I'm
And then,
Another Monday at 6?
Yeah, that's
everybody
it.
willing to volunteer some more time next Monday?
Yeah, I'm stuck in the house. I'm just looking for a way out.
I'm not, I'm back at work and
Okay, Gina.
having a good moment.
December 4th, that's next, Gina.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay,
We're done.
Next
see you.
month. Bye.
We'll see you next week.
Do we just want to say, I think we do have 2 more meetings in here for sure. Do you want to just say the next 2 Mondays at 6 p.m.?
Yeah.
Then we're going up until after Christmas.
Yeah,
I'll check the date.
so 4 but 11?
The fourth and the 11th?
The 11th is
Yeah.
the next Monday.
Oh, man.
You guys need a quorum, eh? Like 3 is a quorum or?
Yeah.
Yeah. I've reviewed this document in full, but
You don't catch it.
I'm not planning on skipping one of these meetings. I'm just saying if I can't make it, I have reviewed it. And so I can probably get any questions in if I don't show up.
That sounds like a good ready to skip, I'm just saying.
Yeah. But you'll be here when the planner gets here, maybe?
Yeah, I will. No, I
It'll
will.
be January.
No, I'm just saying as a cautionary.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's good that everybody's here, because we get more from the week than
Yes.
which is what we need. Mhm.
I have to go ahead of time because I'm slow.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, next two Mondays,
Had a
Gina.
hip replacement not very long ago.
I didn't know that.
I was supposed to get it on twelfth of October.
Okay,
I got COVID.
Okay,
have a good week.
you too.
How's it